Welcome back, folks, to We Know Texas Vino. We are actually at a very beautiful winery today. We are at Tatum Cellars here in Johnson City. I'm here with Joshua Fritzy. Did I get it right?
Fritzy.
Fritzy. Yeah. Dang it. And I said it like 4 times in my head before I said it, but it didn't come out right. Do apologize for that.
No, that's all right. 4 years of high school, no one ever got it right. So.
I definitely understand that one. But real quick, before we get into the show, I just want to let everybody know you can find our podcast on any podcasting platform, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcast. And you can also now find us on YouTube, doing video now, as you can see. And then also, with all that being said, remember that we have now 4 tickets to give away for the North Texas Wine Association Wine Walk down in the Love Field Florida Museum this May 31st. So be on the lookout on how you can score yourself some free tickets for that and have a great time. With all that being said, Joshua, thank you for having us out here, or having me out here.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
But before we get going, we got to toast the show. If we don't, it's a curse.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, sir. So before we get started, what are we drinking here?
This is the 2020 Mourvedre, all from Salt Lake Vineyard.
Really? That is really good.
Yeah, this was it won the Texas Vintners Cup through Texas Monthly, so it was one of the top 12 wines of the year for last year.
Wow, really? Right off the bat, I got a nice little subtle fruit forward, very subtle, but a very good jamminess right in the middle of it. And that finish is, you can't complain about that finish.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of this wine.
That's amazing little wine there. I'm going to have to definitely get a bottle when we leave here. So, well, Joshua, one thing I love about doing this show is getting to know you on a much personal level. So what did you do before you decided you were going to become a winemaker?
I was in the restaurant business.
Really?
For forever. It's all kind of all I knew.
Okay.
Took the sommelier exam, took the CSW exam, mainly just to learn wine.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew wine, very comfortable with wine.
Okay.
And I got fired over a Yelp review one time. So I threw my hands up and tried to look for something else.
You got fired over a Yelp review?
Yeah, and it turned out it wasn't even me. So they named me in the Yelp review, and I swore up and down it wasn't me. But a couple months later, I ran into the manager, and he's like, "Yeah, it wasn't you." So
you should ask for restitution.
He told me to come back, but I had already found this little niche. So
well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what? You said you had your SOM, and you had which other certification?
CSW.
CSW. Okay. So you decided just like, hey, I want to do wine now.
Yeah. So we, living in Austin, I thought it was the coolest thing. This was 2008, 2009.
Okay.
Thought it was the coolest thing that there's this little wine industry an hour away, and at that time no one was really paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
But we were coming out 3-4 times a year.
Okay.
Was out of a job for probably 3 months, and it was right around it was February. Went through, noticed a new place, so we stopped, and that new place was William Chris.
Okay.
So we got there, 6 months after they'd opened, and loved the wines, loved the place.
Mm-hmm.
So I just bugged Chris until he hired me, basically.
I guess that's one way of doing it.
He likes to joke. He would throw me on bird netting. Like it was all he would let me do for the first few months, but I loved it.
Right.
And bird netting's not writing Yelp reviews. So.
Right. Yeah, that's not getting the good stuff.
Yeah.
I will have to say, have worked in a vineyard this past year. I have much more affinity now for people who work in the vineyard every day. That's not easy work, and a lot of the listeners, they think it's glorious to go out there and sit and prune vines and put netting up and clean weeds and all of that. It's okay, but when it's 900 degrees outside,
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I prefer the 58-degree cellar.
I agree with you also.
The only schooling I have in the wine industry is viticulture certificate. I got my viticulture certificate through Texas Tech.
Okay.
Before, actually, I graduated that first year at William Chris, so I was already kind of took that plunge before I started in the cellar.
Nice. Well, I will have to say I have not been to William Chris yet. In fact, actually, I just talked to Zen Brown about trying to come out Saturday and to talk to somebody out there. If I have to talk to the wall, I will. Because the walls probably could tell me a lot of stories.
There's a lot of stories in those walls for sure.
So you go to William Chris. you bug them until they give you a job.
Mm-hmm.
You get out there and start doing the nettings. So what actually pushed you into, hey, I want to make wine?
Well, so at that time at William Chris, it was me, Bill, and Chris. It was, essentially it. So we were doing everything in the vineyard in the mornings and then in the cellar in the afternoons.
Okay.
At that time, my first harvest we did, I think it was right around 2,000 cases, a little over.
Wow.
When I left, that was 2011 was my first harvest. When I left in 2019, we were slated for about 65,000 cases, and I think they're a little above that now. So
wow. Well, I've heard a lot of good rumors about William Chris, so I'm gonna run some by you, and we're gonna see if we can bust some of these myths. I heard.
All right.
So I heard that William Chris went to Japan.
Yeah.
And had a whole bunch of wine, and like they sold out of all the wine because the Japanese are infatuated with Texas culture.
They love Texas and they love wine. So
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So
it's an easy sell for Chris. Don't give him too much credit.
Okay, that's fair. All right, we'll keep that on a low down. And then I actually heard that they're actually talking about wanting to ship wine out there now.
Yep. Actually, he is headed out there again next week.
Wow. Okay. So you decided that, okay, I'm done working for somebody else. I want to do my own stuff now. So you decided, you just woke up one day, it's like, I'm going to do my own stuff?
Well, no. So in 2012, which is when I started this brand, we found out that we were pregnant, and we came up with a name. Her name was Tatum Rose. I'm a huge rosé fan.
Okay.
And at that time in Texas, most rosés were orange muscat with some petits Syrah blended for color.
Right.
I talked Chris into letting me make 1 ton of rosé. At first, they were kind of skeptical about it, but when I told him, her name's going to be Tatum Rose, and I want to make Tatum Rosé, he was like, okay, yeah, you have to do that. So he gave me the blessing. I started with 25 cases of rosé.
And how did those go?
Very well.
Yeah.
At that time, it was just a new style of rosé for Texas, very Provençal.
Okay.
But yeah, that first one, the little 25 cases with Texas Monthly, got written up in different publications. So, I've done rosé ever since.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, you're just starting as a very young winemaker, and you're getting that kind of recognition already. That's pretty impressive. That's, that gives me more hope for myself. Becoming a young winemaker myself, So, so when did you just decide that you actually just wanted to open up Tatum Cellars then? I mean, you quit 2019 at William Chris. You decided to do it then?
Yeah, so I left William Chris in 2019 to open another place. I was there in the 20 harvest or 19 harvest and 20 harvest.
Mm-hmm.
Left in 21, took all of 21 off.
Okay.
And then kind of had to get my production out of the old space.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Ron Yates and asked him, because I live in Spicewood. Okay. So was driving by, and, Spicewood Vineyards is 10 minutes from my house. So, and, I asked Ron, can I throw all this stuff in here while I figure things out? And he gave me his blessing, but told me to take my stuff to Yates instead. And then at the end of harvest, he called me. I was sitting by the pool drinking margaritas all summer. It was great. First time in 10 years.
Why not?
Yeah. He called me and said he needed help, and so I've been at Ron Yates ever since.
Nice. Okay.
So
and that's another man I want to talk to. I mean, I've heard a lot of people refer him to as the wine Jesus.
On looks alone.
Yeah, just the looks. I mean, I met him once, and at first I actually thought he was Jesus at first, and then I realized it was Ron Yates.
A lot of people think that they get us mixed up. And they'll call me Ron, or they're like, "This is your brother."
So I'll tell you a little funny story about the whole brother stuff. So I work for Bob Landon up in North Texas, and so a lot of people come in and say, "Oh, are you the owner?" I said, "No, I'm not the owner. I'm actually his younger brother, better looking brother that can grow facial hair."
No, I can't grow the facial hair like Ron. He grow a full beard in 4 hours.
Hey, you know what? I just saved this on yesterday, okay? So I know that conundrum. So, okay, so you're working at Ron Yates. You decided that, hey, this is what I want to do. So how did you end up finding this place here? How did this all come about?
So I had my eye on this spot. I don't know if you remember Southold Farm and Cellar.
Name sounds familiar.
So he was kind of off of Sandy Road, his main tasting room, but he had opened this spot for like a late night kind of natural wine bar / tasting room.
Okay.
But he was rarely open.
Okay.
So I kept driving by, wanting to stop. I drive by 2 times a day out here and then on the way home, wanting to stop, never saw it open. So I just kept texting him and kind of poking him and said, if you don't need that space, I could sure use it. Then he ended up selling Southold and bought a chateau in Bordeaux. And he's like, you're in luck. I'm moving to France. So that's all yours. Yeah.
Wow.
So I moved in, it was actually 2 years ago last week.
Wow. Okay, so that actually answers a lot of my next questions, because I don't remember when I started doing this podcast 3 years ago. I remember looking up and trying to find locations here in Johnson City, because we had stayed over here in the Best Western downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to find some places here in Johnson City that was going to be open when we were going to be available. And by the time we saw the times that places were over here open, we were already in Fredericksburg by that time. And so we were leaving straight from there, going back to North Texas. And so that would explain why I didn't see y'all 3 years ago. So, okay. So you're still very new.
Very new as far as the tasting room. But, again, the brand started in 2012.
Nice.
So it's weird to think back that, I had tried to sell wine for 10 years, without a tasting room or a website or anything. So if you knew about it, you could buy it at William Chris. But especially the rosé kind of built this kind of cult following around it. So it got to the point to where, I'd make a Facebook post about bottling it, and I'd have people messaging me, save me a case. So upped production to whites and reds. I think in 16 was my first red.
Okay.
And just kept going from there. But then realized that the wholesale game wasn't the game I wanted to play.
Right.
So started to look for a kind of brick and mortar spot that would fit the brand. I've got my full-time job in the cellar, so I don't have a whole lot of time to do to this. So, I open this on Thursdays at 4 till 8, and then Friday 4 to 8, and Saturdays 12 to 8. So just open 16 hours a week.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what most wineries in this area, especially out in the countryside, that's what they're doing.
But keeping it open late has been good for me. Keeping it open until 8 o'clock, because I get that late rush of like what you were saying. You're out in Fredericksburg all day, coming back looking for something that was open later.
Yep.
And right now I'm the only place. So
See, that's the moneymaker right there.
yeah, I think Vonovium, once they move in town, they'll kind of.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, it's great. Love them.
Okay.
But and also close at 6.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, so, talking about your rosé, I'm going to go back and chat with that. How you said you would post online and you're bottling it.
Mm-hmm.
They've got those cult wines out there that, people look for and wait for them, and then stand in line to buy the wines, and they only have so many to sell.
Mm-hmm.
You ever thought about doing that yourself?
That was kind of the idea. It was kind of, hey, if it's all sold before I make it, that's not a horrible thing.
Right.
But that takes work too. So
that is true.
Yeah.
But at that point you can name the price and people will buy it.
Right. But yeah, so ever since I started, so since 2012, the rosé has been $25.
Wow. So that's awesome. We'll have to try some of that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
I love me a good rosé. So especially on a nice hot day. Not hot today, but on a nice hot day, it's still,
rosé year round in
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
That's and we do it well here.
It's awesome. We'll definitely have to give it a shot. So, all right. So you got your tasting room all opened up. You're sitting here, got things going, and you're like, okay, now what? Are you trying to plan out for the next? Do you plan out? And some winemakers say they plan out for the next 5 years. Some plan out the next 10 years. Some do the next 15 years. How do you plan yourself out?
I'm just trying to figure out next Thursday, really.
I'm with you on that one, and I'm not even a winemaker.
No, once it's I don't have a wine club yet.
Okay.
But that's kind of the next thing is
Okay.
to build the wine club, or start the wine club.
I mean, that's where you get your followers now.
Yeah. So, I've got a lot of fans, a lot of followers that have been following me for 13 years now that keep begging me for the wine club. But my production's only around 800 cases a year.
Okay.
So I was trying to kind of balance wine club and keep the tasting room open.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather people come here and experience this place
Right.
than to just get a box of wine at home.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, that's 100% fair. You rather have them come in, have an experience, enjoy the environment, and instead of sit at home and do nothing. You know? How exciting is that?
Yeah. But and you look at the sales, and like, okay, time to get the wine club going, right? But
well, some of these wineries, especially the small ones that are just starting out, they're doing like, we're only doing 20 wine club members, and the minute we hit that number, that's it. We're not doing it anymore. And then until you get your numbers up, and then you add more in.
Yeah.
And of course, get those first whatever number you set up. Say you get special perks because you are my first. So something to think about. Because I mean, this right here is amazing. I would actually be a part of the wine club just for this.
yeah, thank you.
I love a good Mourvèdre. I do. It's just it's kind of like also a Montepulciano.
Mm-hmm.
If you find a good Montepulciano.
Yeah. So with this Mourvèdre, so I always do with Mourvèdre specifically, I do co-pigmentation during fermentation. So typically the Syrah comes off a week to 10 days before the Mourvèdre does. So I can get the Syrah fermented and pressed out, and then I'll save the skins of the Syrah and throw it on the Mourvèdre, for inoculation because the yeast is still alive and kicking.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll use that to inoculate, but also you're extracting things from the Syrah. In 2020, the Syrah and Mourvèdre came off at the same time, so this was co-pigmented with Montepulciano.
Man, you're playing games with me now. Honestly, I've never thought about that. I've never heard of anybody doing that before. This is the first time I've heard this. So let me get this correct. So you got your Syrah, you fermented, you press, and you took the skins and turned around and threw it into your Monty.
Into the Mourvèdre.
Oh, sorry, Mourvèdre.
Yep.
And you threw it in there, and you allowed the yeast that was still on the Syrah
to inoculate the Mourvèdre. But then you're also, your skin to juice ratio is now more skins than juice, so you're extracting. Most of it's been extracted, depending on how long the Syrah or the fermentation went on the Syrah. But there's still usable tannins and flavors there that I like to use.
Okay, so that's something that you kind of tried on your own, or is it something you learned?
I did. So I used to, all the rosé was made by Saunier on the Mourvèdre.
Okay.
And then I started throwing the Syrah on the Mourvèdre. So like I would Saunier like 40% of the juice and then throw another 20% of skins. So I was like 80% skin, 20% juice at that point. I've always liked what it did to the wines. You got to be careful. You can't throw the skins on and then cold soak, because those yeast are going to want to start going.
Yeah.
So that took me a year or two to figure out.
A couple accidents there. Well, so this is what I love about talking to different winemakers and doing this podcast is, working to become a winemaker myself. I listen to what y'all saying, and you trial and error, and I learn from what y'all done. I still got to make my errors, because that's the only way I'm going to learn is make my own errors. But I never thought about doing that, honestly. I never thought about taking skins from another varietal and putting it on top of another one, and you get something amazing out of that. So I'm actually going to try that when I get home. So I've got an Alicante Boucher aging right now, and then I've got a fill blend of Cab Franc, Cab Sauv, and Petit Verdot that when I press, I think I'm going to throw the Alicante on top of that fill blend and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
do it.
What's the worst that's
There are
going to
no
happen?
rules.
Yeah. It becomes undrinkable and I have to throw it in a brandy barrel to make it drinkable.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I love, again, talking to the different winemakers. I get to hear different things. Like, also, I want to do amphoras. I think an amphora, doing it old world wise. And when I say old world, I mean, talking about using the beeswax to cover it, too. Not using the stainless steel locks, actually using the beeswax. I think that would just be a whole different level, bringing Texas wine's flavors out into what we have right now. It's just different stuff.
I toyed with Amphora at William Chris for a couple of years.
How did that work?
It was good. It was the only natural wine that I had made while we were there. Let's see, we used Tanat from the estate because that was my big thing. So a whole cluster, non-distemmed, throw it in there, let it go.
So you did whole cluster. So means you just dropped it in there and you just let it ferment as it was. You didn't crush it.
With some dry ice and cover it up and let it go.
Dry ice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
that is very interesting. See, again, I'm just learning something new there. So why the dry ice?
To get that kind of carbonic maceration, so you want it to be starved of oxygen. So when you cap it with that dry ice, it's just going to push all the air out and keep it this kind of oxygen-free environment.
Okay.
And just protects the wine.
Interesting. So when you said natural, so you didn't use any SO2 on it?
No SO2, no yeast.
No yeast, no nothing. You just let nature do its own course.
Right.
Like they used to do in the old world.
Yeah. But, in a winery, like William Chris, we would use, we used probably 20 different yeasts. So those yeasts are there.
Okay.
In the air and on the walls. So they're everywhere. But we didn't pitch yeast in this particular wine.
Interesting. Now, see, again, you just made my wheels in my brain start turning. I'm processing data now, so it's something else to learn, That's very interesting. So you got your tasting room going. You got some great wines going here. What is the fan favorites, and what is your favorite?
Ooh, my favorite, it kind of changes. Right now, either this Mourvèdre, the 2019 Syrah, which is on the list right now as well, which is very old world, dusty, kind of earthy, funky Syrah, which I love.
I like that too.
And then I've got a white Rhone blend called Trois Étoiles, means 3 stars, so it's Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier.
Oh.
Fermented separately in stainless, and then I made the blend and put half of it in acacia wood for 3 months, and then blended back. First time using acacia wood and loved what it did.
I think you're the first person I've heard that uses acacia. Also,
there's a few people out here using it.
Yeah.
You're seeing it more in whites and rosés. But the crazy thing is you can only use it, 3-4 months.
Really?
Is kind of the max that you want.
Why is that?
It's just so intrusive and invasive.
So it really just takes over everything.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. It is a much harder wood.
Super hard, intense. But it brightens the acid. It changes the color a little bit, like more bright. Whereas, like you put a white wine in French oak, you're going to get that kind of golden hay hue to it. This is more like star bright and green that it kind of extracts from it, which at first it kind of confused me. But
something comes out green, it's going to confuse me too.
But I loved what it did to the wine, so I'm going to kind of keep that program going.
Okay, I can't wait to taste them. Honestly, I want to try to taste everything that you've got. So that's just amazing. So that's your favorite. So what is the fan favorite that everybody's just like, they come in and you can actually
Rosé is still probably the number one seller.
Okay.
Rosé for sure. I'd have to go look at the numbers, but I know in 24 Rosé was the big numbers wise, as far as how many units were sold. But Mourvèdre, I'm kind of known as the Mourvèdre guy, so a lot of people come in for Mourvèdre.
I could definitely see why. That's really good. Really good.
Thank you.
So let's change some gears now.
Sure.
So let's talk about Texas wines, just in general, okay? So where do you see Texas wines in the next, let's say, 5 years, 10 years?
Where do I see them?
Yes. Let me rephrase that. Not just Texas wine, but the wine industry in Texas.
Yeah, it's a weird time for the wine industry in general. I talked to a buddy that's in Napa, and he's kind of saying the same kind of things that we're saying here. It's hard. There's so many wineries, so many hands in the pot now, which isn't a bad thing. But the consumers drinking less, the younger generation is drinking more seltzers and that sort of thing. So how do we get them back around? I don't know. It's a conversation that I have with people out here every day.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has any answers yet.
There is no right or wrong answer at this point.
Yeah.
I do know that the industry right now in whole, just like you said, in fact, actually, I was reading an article the other day in California. They're pulling up 100-year-old vines.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me personally, I wouldn't be pulling up 100-year-old vines. I'm pulling up 3 and 4-year-old vines. I mean, that's just me because, a grapevine been up for 100 years. That's got characteristic now. That's seen different kind of pollutions and saw different fires and, had all kinds of weathers that it's gone through. And, it's a hardy grape at that point,
Yeah, but then you have, that builds character and complexity the older the vine gets. And the younger generation is drinking more, non-complex and fruit forward and just kind of linear wines. So it makes sense to rip out the old stuff and keep the new ones at that point.
Curiosity.
Because those young ones are going to be old ones before too long.
Well, that's true. Now, what I was just thinking about, curiosity is, could you transplant those 100-year-old vines, dig them up, get a good root system when you dig them up, bag them with a little bit of water to keep them moist, and then ship them over to Texas and put them in the soil?
Graft them, graft those younger vines onto the older vine rootstock.
I mean, amazing. Imagine what kind of flavor that would be.
Yeah.
I mean, 100-year-old rootstock, and put it on a young one. That would be some good stuff right there. I'll see the gears turning in your head now.
Yeah. But again, I'm not a vineyard guy.
Well, that's true. I ain't either. Oh, man. So, where do you get your grapes from? Do you get them here locally, or do you get them up from the high plains?
I am, minus this past harvest, 100% hill country. So, bulk of my stuff comes from the Salt Lick Vineyard in Driftwood. I used to manage the restaurant and kind of helped them work on the vines in the early 2000s. So I had a kind of an in to get the fruit. At the time that I started and wanted the fruit, it was all going to Fall Creek. So I used to have to go in with my lights off super early in the morning to get my fruit.
Poaching grapes, huh?
Yeah.
I like that.
But the moment that I think it was the rosé made it on the cover of Texas Monthly, and I was like, it says Salt Lick Vineyard on there. And
you can't miss it then.
Yeah, and the vineyard manager, Jay, was like, yeah, you're right. Like, you don't have to sneak in anymore. So... Yeah, so Salt Lick, and then I get a lot of fruit from Uplift Vineyard.
Okay.
Working with Chris for so long, he still kind of takes care of me. But I was getting that fruit when it was still Hoover Valley.
Okay.
So I get a little bit of fruit from them. Depending on the season, the Grenache at Salt Lick didn't make it through the freeze. So we ripped it out and replanted. So for 2 years there, my Grenache rosé was coming from La Pradera in the High Plains.
Okay.
So, but other than that, I try to be focused on the hill country. Mainly, I love what the hill country produces.
Right.
As far as what the wine turns out as, but also I can go and check on a vineyard and be home by dinner.
That is true too.
And not have to drive to Brownfield.
Right. Well, I mean, your roots are here too, and you always want to stick where your roots are. You can get grapes from the high plains, but you have to learn that soil and figure out what yeast you want to put with it. Where here, you already know what you can do with it. You already have an idea what the soil is. You know what the kind of fruit you're going to produce out of it. So you already know. So I get it.
Yeah, that and travel time for me.
Travel time
It's
too.
if I can get stuff hand picked here in the hill country, even if it's machine picked, it's I can be in the cellar within the hour instead of a 7-8 hour trip down.
Yeah, I know about that 7-8 hour trip. I got up one Labor Day weekend and at 2 a.m. and drove all the way to Ready Vineyards, harvest 400 pounds of grapes, and then turned around and drove back.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
I will have to say the most interesting part of that trip is I left Fort Worth and it was 80 degrees. And I got to Ready, and it was 65. And I'm like, what is this nonsense that I'm seeing here? Oh, man. So what is it that you love about doing messing with wine? I mean, is it just, I mean, everybody has a passion about it, and there's a reason why.
It's the creative aspect for me, especially when it comes to blending and kind of pushing something to be what I want it to be, or my vision for it. Also, I want to make wines that I like to drink, and not necessarily what the consumer wants. And it's kind of selfish of me.
No,
but
that's fair. I mean, because if you don't sell it, you got to drink it.
Right. Yeah, there's that. But also, like, I have really good taste. So, no. It's, I love the creativity of it. I love the camaraderie of this industry.
Yes.
Everyone kind of watches out for each other, takes care of each other, and helps each other out. Yes. So I love that. I've never really found that in my professional career up until this point.
Yes.
I love this industry. I love, raising eyebrows when I tell someone from some place else. I was in Colorado, mentioned that, we make wine in Texas, and they raise their eyes and scrunch their nose up, but you put it down in front of them, and they're like, oh, okay, like I can get behind this, and this is good, and it's a win for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just a win for you, but it's a win for Texas.
Yeah, it's a win for the industry. And I love, I'm born and raised in Texas, from Fort Worth originally. And just to kind of, there's that Texas pride that we all know all Texans have.
Yes.
So to do something when the rest of the world's telling you can't is kind of,
in Texas, when you say, hold my beer, watch me.
Right. So when it works, it's really fun.
Well,
more bad, right? Same thing, was it?
Sure. I will never say no.
I'm going to open a fresh bottle.
I actually had a question on top of my head, and it's funny working at I don't know if you get it here, but I know working at North Texas, I get a lot of people from different states and countries. So my first little story I'll tell you is I had a husband and wife from Ireland come in, and I give them the spiel about wine at the winery, that is Texas Wines, and he first looked at me and he goes, Texas grows wine or grows grapes? I'm like, yes, we do grow grapes. We have about 10,000 acres under vine right now. And he goes, and I'm going to try to do it as my best Irish accent because he's from Ireland. He goes, it must taste like shite. Excuse my language on that. Let's hope that doesn't get me on podcast. And I was like, Texas is winning a lot of awards across the nation. And even now in Old World, we're starting to actually start winning awards there and getting notoriety. And he's like, well, let's see what you got. And so I poured him a little Torragado. And he drank it, and he looked at me, and he goes, this is actually really good. And then he turned around, and he goes, what else you got? And so I just kind of went down the line and started pouring all the different whites and reds and stuff. And he actually said that the French crap that he drinks is no longer worth drinking. So when you hear somebody that actually is over in Old World and drinks that stuff every day, and then turns around and drinks Texas stuff, and he says that, now, it might be the wine that's talking at that point, because he was probably a bottle and a half in by that point. But it feels good that someone from another country who's used to the Old World wine drinks Texas wine and says, this is actually really good. In fact, actually, they came in 3 days straight, so maybe it was worth them coming in.
Yeah.
So, and then my favorite story is when you have people that come in from California, and they automatically say, what kind of wines do you have? And I ask them where they're from. They say from California. And I tell them this is a Texas wine bar or Texas winery, and they look at me like I'm crazy, and they said Texas makes wine. I was like, yeah, we have, like 900 wineries available here in Texas right now, and I start explaining to them what we have and stuff, and they said, well, Texas wines are always way too sweet, and I was like, well, I mean, it depends on what you're drinking. If you're drinking sweet wine, yes, it's going to be sweet. And they said, well, no, it was a dry wine, and I was like, well, then you're looking at something that was very fruit forward. And so we proceed to go through a tasting, and by the end of that tasting, they were actually really impressed with Texas wine and actually took cases home with them. So that kind of stuff is what I love doing. I love showcasing and helping educate people who are not educated. I don't want to say uneducated, but just not educated. That Texas wines are really good. You just have to give it a chance. You got to exit your mind that, California has put in, and I'm not trying to bash California, okay, but let's make that very clear. I'm not trying to bash what California does, but you got to exit what you're thinking about what California wine tastes like or Washington, Oregon wine tastes like, and you got to say Texas is their own wine, and you have to understand how it tastes.
Yeah, then I think the biggest hurdle is the fact that Texans drink all of the Texas wine. So getting the wine outside of the state is kind of our biggest hurdle, which is, why Chris is going to Japan. And
that makes me smile. Just saying that, sending wine over to Japan, it just makes me smile.
Yeah.
Well, when I was out at Sage Vintage a couple weeks ago, Michael McClendon is actually making wine for other states using Texas grapes.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, we started doing it. It's not a big thing right now, but it's happening because, they're right there on that eastern side of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So, Louisiana, Missouri, Arkansas, stuff like that, he's making wines for them. So I'm like, okay, so we got all these little boutique wineries that's popping up on all these little other states drinking Texas wine. That's a good start right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always amazing to get a little something out there. Just take it a little hook, and it just takes a little spark to get that fire going. So
It is, and I'm actually 3 weeks from today. I'll be in Paso Robles for the Rhone Rangers event.
Okay.
Doing, sharing Texas wines in Paso. And then I know that a few wineries have done that the past 2 years. But this year, the week after we come back from Paso, they're actually doing a Rhone Rangers event in Texas.
And I reached out to them to see if I can do an episode with them and sit down and we talk about that. And I haven't heard anything from them yet.
Yeah.
So, hint, hint.
Yeah, look for, I think we're doing they're doing a big consumer tasting on that Sunday, I don't know, the 5th or 6th, whatever that date is. And then that Tuesday we'll be in
April, right?
Yeah, first week of April.
Yeah, I've got things going on that weekend now. So, but yeah, I reached out to them. I said, hey, let's sit down, let's chat, because I would love to talk about Rhone wines made in Texas and California and everywhere else, Rhone style wines, and let people understand there's a big difference, but you can still taste, the region that you're in. So, it'd be fun to do,
I'm looking forward to it.
One of the things I love doing is doing blind tastings, get California version of our same varietals and make people pick which one's Texas. It's always fun to do. And then people are like, oh, yeah, this is the Texas one or this is the California one, and they're completely wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, Joshua, it's been amazing sitting here chatting with you. Is there anything that you want to say from the heart, or you just want people to know about you or about your winery or your wines, or you just want to speak your piece?
No, not really. I love this little space. The little 500 square foot tasting room, which is so different than what is out here as the norm. So with that, I've kind of set out for it to be a vibe, which is why I just play vinyl and nothing else.
Well, we made the comment about that when I walked in, and I saw you had the old Pioneer radio up there, and I saw all the vinyls. I made a comment about that.
Yeah.
You had actually, 9 Inch Nails playing on vinyl? That was amazing. I just walked in, I was like, 9 Inch Nails on vinyl? What?
Yeah, and so I'm a huge music fan, and I don't stick to one genre. I love everything. And that's kind of shows through with the music that we spin here. But also, like tonight is vinyl night. So bring in a vinyl, you get 10% off.
I'm looking forward to listening.
And it's funny, it's kind of became locals night, and everyone kind of brings their favorite. It's been a while now, maybe this time last year, but this random woman came in. She was in a suit and tie. she's like, I'm passing through, and I just saw that you do vinyl night, and so I brought this vinyl. Will you play it? And I was like, yeah, I'll play whatever you bring. She's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't, it was death metal. And there's this like 55-year-old lawyer lady.
Are you serious?
And she's like, it's my favorite band. And
Who
like,
was it?
I don't even remember the name of it.
I would have laughed if it was like Guar or something like that.
No, I mean it was like Swedish death metal, the ones where you can't read the name. But she was sitting there singing all the words, and I was like, "This is cool."
Kind of like Rammstein.
Kinda, but more like scary.
Okay, well, if you're telling me scary, then that is scary. It's let's just talk about music and wine that goes together. Okay, I mean. Just like you, I love all music. There's not one genre that I stick to. I mean, depends on what I'm doing, depends on what I listen to. If I'm on my motorcycle, it's rock. Maybe some country, but mainly rock. Or if I'm sitting in my desk at work and I'm working on something that's really important, I'll listen to like something light, like Michael Jackson. No one heard that, okay? Or something, or country, or something like that, Or when I'm going through something, I want to listen to something that just like screams, that has a lot of beat to it. Or then I break out my 90s, stuff and break out some old classic rap, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Biggie Smalls.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of everything in here. But my it goes back to my thought on, music and food and drink. Are kind of like the three universal languages. Mm-hmm. So you can, even if you can't communicate them to someone by speaking to them, you can reach someone and touch someone through music, food, and drink.
Right.
So I've tried to kind of take that thought and apply it on everything that we do here. Mm-hmm. So this place is just about the wine, just about the music, mm-hmm. and then, the small little bites that we do.
I love that. I mean, I know a lot of people when they're in the production room, no music whatsoever, and there's a very few people that in the production room they have music playing. I think music is a key thing that helps make your wine better because you're being influenced by a culture, or a feeling, or XYZ, whatever you want to say it. And I like that you do that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. So. Now, do you do that in your production room? Do you have music spinning in your...
Yes, I always have, but our speakers in the cellar now aren't working, and I can't figure it out. And we've had 2 people come in to try to figure it out, but the way that the guy that installed them, I don't know. They don't know what he did. There's wires going every which direction, and
I hate that.
So,
well, can it be simple? 2 wires going from the radio to the speaker.
Right.
Why can't we?
Yeah. There's 4 channels.
Yeah.
We just hook it up.
We don't need amps anymore. Let's just get the old
radio.
radios.
But I'm not one to work with headphones on. There's something about the headphones that I can't do. And you're driving a forklift. It's one thing to have music playing in a speaker in the corner of the ceiling, and another to have headphones on. And you can't hear anything else around you.
But, I have to be honest with you with that. I have to agree with you 100% on that. I cannot. I mean, if I have one on, I have only one in because I have to be able to hear. And even on the motorcycle, when I have my headset on, I can't wear a full helmet because I need to hear everything around me. And if I can't hear, it throws everything off. And I can't do that. So I definitely have to agree with you on that. Having headphones on while you're working is not viable.
Yeah, I won't let any of my cellar guys wear headphones either.
Yeah, that's a safety issue also.
For sure, yeah.
So definitely like that. That's good. I like that. So, Joshua, where can people find you at online and also in person?
So you can find us online at tatumcellars.com.
Okay.
We have Facebook and Instagram as well, although I'm not very good at it. So, but it's there.
I'm with you on that. Even though I'm an IT guy, I'm not good at it either.
Yeah. And then Tasting Room is on Nugent in downtown Johnson City, right on the square. If you're familiar with Nice and Easy, amazing cocktail bar, they're right across the street from us.
Or literally, catty corner from the Motorcycle Museum?
Motorcycle Museum, yeah.
I mean, that's what caught my eye.
Yeah, Motorcycle Museum. Let's see, we've got There's a pizza shop, the
I
brewery. So right on this little square, you could stay here all day.
Yeah, I like that. Got a good little niche going on here. I like that.
Yeah, it's a cool little spot. It's a perfect spot for my brand. I didn't really want to be in Fredericksburg for no other reason than, I don't know. I mean, so I grew up in Fort Worth, right? And I tell people all the time that, like, if you think of Johnson City and you think of Fredericksburg, Johnson City's Fort Worth, Fredericksburg's Dallas.
Yeah, that's fair. Smaller scale. Yeah, that's fair. Now, out of curiosity, have you? I don't know if you're familiar with Old Vine, Texas, up in Mansfield. He is a very small little wine bar that he actually features a lot of hill country wines up there. I want to give you his information.
Yeah,
I think it would be really great to have your wines up there as well. He actually brings, and this is a little plug because he's one of my sponsors, so I'm doing a plug right now for him. But he brings a lot of the taste of the hill country up to North Texas because it is a different terroir drinking up there. And he's actually, it's starting to pick up steam, and he's trying to get more hill country wines up there. And I think you would actually be a great fit for what he's doing up there. So
yeah, I'm open to, especially up there. I have, so I self-distribute.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back up to Fort Worth 2 times maybe a year.
Okay.
And so that's when I kind of...
Where do you distribute up there? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a little wine bottle shop in downtown Fort Worth. The name is escaping me right now.
Okay. Well, if you think about it, send me a message on
Yeah.
Instagram, on Facebook. Because, I do frequent any place that features Texas wines. I try to frequent them to support them because they need our support. So, yeah, I'm on board with that. Let me know what they are. Who knows? You actually might be right down the road from my work.
Yeah, it's not. It's right off of Magnolia.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that because literally that's right by my work.
Okay. Yeah.
I work at Cook's Children's Hospital.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's literally right there. So, yeah, I have an idea where you're at then. Okay, so I will be going there.
It's been a while since I've been up there to take them wine, so they might not have any Tatum Cellars.
We have to fix that.
Yeah.
I have to definitely fix that. So, well, Joshua, what we're going to do, we're going to take a small little break, kind of get up and stretch our legs a little bit, and then we're going to come back and just do like a 10, 15-minute wine education. And just, we're going to talk about tannins.
All right.
Nothing fancy, but what tannins do to our wines and how it makes the complexity of the wines better. So, all right, folks, we're going to be right back for just a second. We're going to stand up, take a walk. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Eric Beyer of Old Vine, Texas, a new winery tasting room featuring 100% Texas wines from wineries all over the state. We are located in Mansfield, Texas, inside of Ancora Event Center on Broad Street. We have weekly tastings, charcuterie board to enjoy, live music, and a new wine club. Go visit our website at oldvinetexas.com to sign up for our newsletter and learn more. Or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Vine, Texas. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back, everybody, to We Know Texas Vino. We're out here at Tatum Cellars with Joshua
Fritchie.
Oh, my gosh. One of these days I will get it right, and then we won't have to worry about it. So
Again, 4 years of high school. Coaches never got it right. So, and they yelled at me every day. But it was always a different pronunciation.
Yeah.
So I didn't pay attention. That's probably why they yelled at me.
Probably so.
Many times.
I feel the same way. They always said bad things with my last name. I'm Donahue, and so they used it for different things. So Well, so Joshua, we're here on our education part. We always talk about something for somebody to learn. And one of the things that a lot of people talk about a lot about wines is the tannin. They always talk about how the tannin affects the taste, how the tannin affects the feel. The tannin affects everything that you have within a wine. We all know that you find a majority of the tannins in a red wine. And so we actually were over at Whisper Path, and we talked a little bit about the tannins over there. So I want to go a little bit more deeper with you a little bit here. So explain a little bit more to our listeners what a tannin does for the complexity of a wine.
Oh, so
I mean, I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that.
Well, no, so if you think about tannins, right, they're found in pretty much every fruit. They're found in the bark, the skin, the seeds. The whole point of tannins in nature is to make things unpalatable.
Right.
It's our job as a winemaker to make them palatable. So, where were we going with this?
How tannins make wines more complex or less complex?
Yeah, right. So balance, right? So, I prefer more of the oak tannins,
Okay.
but in a small dose. Everything I do here is roughly 10 to 15% new oak.
Okay.
And that's basically to lift the tannins
Okay.
of the wine. Majority of what I do, because I do so much of that co-pigmentation, tannins are very kind of sharp and kind of all over the place
Okay.
early on in the wine's life. Neutral oak will soften those almost to a negative point,
Okay.
make them too soft, and make the wine too kind of fruity. But even on a neutral barrel, there's always influence.
Right.
You're always going to get a little bit of those tannins off of that.
Right.
So I prefer to like really build the tannin early on through fermentation, skin contact, cold soaking, extended maceration, extra skins on top, and then balance those out with that neutral oak during the aging process. But also, we can kind of soften those. I don't really rack anything. I leave everything on the lees, so sur lee aging, and do batonnage and keep the lees stirred up. And that will soften tannins as well, soften mouthfeel. The tannins themselves tend to be a little less astringent with the lee stirring and neutral oak aging.
It's interesting you're seeing that because that's what I've been doing with my Alicante and my fill blend right now. Is have not racked it, and I've actually been stirring the leaves up into it, watching it all kind of just like pull up. Didn't realize I was actually doing something. I just thought it was like, oh, I'm going to try something new here.
Yeah, you're softening those kind of astringent tannins. If you think of a tannin like a sticker burr,
Okay.
right, and as you're stirring and aging and all the things that we do to soften, you're kind of getting rid of those burrs and getting down to the heart of that sticker, and they become softer.
Okay.
It's technically an amino acid chain
Right.
kind of thought process, where you want to coat each end of that chain to make things kind of more balanced.
Interesting. Okay. I actually never thought about it that way, but that's a good analogy because, I live my life in analogies all the time. But I like that. You see the tannins as a sticker spur, and you just kind of soften those down till you get to the core. That's interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. So
or kidney stone, whichever way you want to look at it. Never had one.
Never had one either.
Yeah.
But that's funny. I like that. Well, it's always interesting learning from our winemakers here in Texas. About different things, and I definitely learned some new stuff today from you, and I'm going to take away from myself that I'm going to become a better winemaker by just learning what you just talked about today. So I do appreciate your time that you gave today. I know, this is your time for business and stuff, but I appreciate it again,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So real quick, we're going to hit my sponsors. So one of them is obviously one of our favorite ones is the Texas Wine Lover. Great little app. If you have not seen it, grab it, get it. It shows every winery out here. It shows Tatum on there. Come out here and visit him. I mean, he's got some great, amazing wines. Great, amazing wines. Is that okay to say that?
Yeah, you can say both of those things.
Okay. I mean, it just accentuates it more, right?
Yeah.
So come out here. Excuse me. Oh, you know what? What are we drinking right now? I mean, we drink something new here. I forgot about this.
Yeah, this is the Trois Etoiles.
Trois Etoiles. This is
So
that
it means
Roussan.
Marsan, Roussan, Viognier. So Trois Etoiles means 3 stars.
Right.
So it's the 3 white wine stars, or white grape stars of the Rhone Valley. Fermented separately and then finished. Half of the blend was finished in acacia wood in a puncheon, large format.
amazing, absolutely amazing. And I love the smell of it. I just couldn't stop smelling it. I kind of want to put it as a cologne and, kind of dab it on the neck,
All Hill Country fruit from Uplift Vineyard.
Nice. Awesome. That's amazing. Excuse me. So, all right. Well, so, again, great job on everything. So our last sponsor, and we already talked about them, is Old Vine, Texas. Up in Mansfield. Guys, if you have not gone up there and you want to taste some Hill Country wines without making the quick travel down here, go see Old Vine, Texas. He has some great Hill Country wines that he specializes up there, and he's planning on getting a whole bunch more. So go up there and check Eric out and his wife. Now, we're at the end of the show, Joshua, and unfortunately, I don't have any wine quotes. Do you have a wine quote that you like?
Wine quote?
Yeah, or a saying that you like that is wine-based?
Oh, no, not really.
Usually I've come prepared for this, and honestly, I did. It's on my laptop in the truck, and it's not on my new desktop.
Yeah.
And so I'm so used to using my laptop to do all my work on that I forgot to transfer it on the desktop here. I mean, drink wine and be merry.
Yeah, that's boring, though.
I like how you think. That's boring.
Yeah, there was one. I'm trying to think of it, but it's on the tip of my tongue. Trying to think of the philosopher who said it as well. Well, it'll come to me as soon as you leave.
After we get all this done and put up and stop recording and stuff, it'll definitely come to you. Well, you know what? Drinking wine allows the memory to shine.
All right, yeah.
There you go. I just made that up right now. Okay, I won't put that on a T-shirt. Copyright Will Donahue 2025. Well, again, Joshua, thank you for having us out here. It's been a pleasure coming out here and just sitting down and talking to you. I've heard a lot of good things about you, and in fact, actually, our little chat channel we have with Texas Wine Lover, your name came up multiple times, and I'm like, let's see what we can do here. So, I do appreciate it. So, guys, this is Will with We Know Texas Vino.
It's Josh Fritchie.
And y'all have a good one. Cheers.